Good morning, good afternoon. How you doing? It is Thursday, and this is the Three Amigos. How you doing, Matt?
Doing awesome, Mike. Super excited to talk about this one. And yeah, I'm just pumped. This is a good one. Really
There you
good.
go. And Dion?
Howdy, Mike. I'm doing great, ready for round 3, and I'm actually probably going to make a video on my channel telling everybody to come watch this video because this is one that I think everybody should watch.
Awesome. And what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about step 1 of my course. If you haven't taken my course yet, I will tell you step 1. Step 1 is you need to focus. And most newbie investors are chasing butterflies like April Crosley talks about, or bunnies, whatever it is. If you're a new investor, I have good news for you. Step 1 is focus, and you should only take 20 minutes a day to do the following. And the following is called a buy box. So let's break down what a buy box is. Let's talk to Dion and Matt about what theirs is now and what theirs was in the beginning. Why don't we go to Dion first? Why don't you talk about your buy box is? Because I think you have a couple today, and then we'll rewind to where we started.
Sure. So my goal is to eventually do a burr.
Okay.
And I talk often about the burr strategy, how great it is, but how it's not a good strategy to start with. Before you have the cash flowing assets to support the mistakes you're probably going to make with ARV, estimating rehab costs, rehab timeline, and all that kind of stuff. So I have a burr box where I want a property for $150,000 or less, that when I fix it up, it's, I'm buying it for 70% or less than its value. When I fix it up, there will be enough equity for me to get most of my money out. I don't mind leaving a little bit of money into it. For the burr method, I've been looking at single family houses.
Okay.
And it's going to be, because I only have one that I bought before I was an investor. Since then, everything's been small multifamily, which is my actual current most used burr buy box. Every time I have saved up enough money for a burr and I'm ready to do it and I start looking, my other buy box kicks in and takes all of my money, which is great because I have a consistent return.
Right.
My current buy box is I like small multifamily within an hour of where I live so that I can self-manage. I might go a little bit farther, but the round trip starts to get too long if it's at 2 hours or so. I prefer, and when I talk about what I prefer, these are things I want. And so if it doesn't have one of them, that means I want the others to be stronger.
Got it.
So 2 or 3 of my properties hit every box. 2 or 3 properties hit most of the boxes.
Got it.
I like side-by-side units for small multifamily.
Okay.
I prefer small multifamily because it's the same lending options as single family, and I'm still less than 10 mortgages. I think I have 6 or 7 now. I should know that.
Yeah.
Ish. I have 6-ish mortgage. I'm getting there.
6-ish.
But it's 30-year fixed rate.
Yeah.
I can house hack. Side-by-side units, so you don't have tenants living above or below another, so that you don't have sound complaint, noise complaints. If there's a water leak, it affects one side of the unit, not both.
Yes.
I prefer at least 2 bedrooms or more in my area with a garage, because more space equals more stuff. And we're in Washington, it rains a lot, so people need a place to store stuff. More stuff means less likely to move.
Yes.
And it helps limit tenant turnover.
You're right.
I like washer dryer hookups inside the units. I don't like shared laundry. Tenants don't either, and it helps with turnover. They don't like using laundromats. I don't provide washer dryers. I just like the hookups. And so that's the physical. So it starts with math. My buy box is I want a 10% or better cash on cash return for my area. That's a great deal.
10%
is average.
Awesome.
As long as I can get 10%, that's my great. After math comes those physical criteria like that. After physical criteria comes the location. So if I wasn't living here and didn't know the area, I would look for multiple economic drivers. I want to have more than one source of tenant. So if there's one big mill that can close down, I'm not buying in Aberdeen. I'm not buying in a small town in the middle of anywhere. I'm buying next to a large base and a college and a hospital and a Boeing and Amazon terminal. So 2 or 3 things would have to change to impact my tenants. And another reason why I like the small multifamily is I keep my properties at least 10 miles apart. So I try not to buy too many close together so that they don't pull from the same tenant source. I know some people like to own the block and then they control the block, but I would prefer one rental in each town or suburb.
Okay.
So that something that changes, or even a rent strike in an area, my portfolio is barely impacted. So I'm literally ready for a prolonged government shutdown, pandemic, or stock market crash. So that's where it is now. And I'll let us go through Matt, and then I'll talk about where my buy box started.
Okay, very cool. And just curious, how much time do you think you spend a day looking at your buy box?
I'm going to downplay it a little. Just 3 or 4 hours.
Just 3 or 4 hours?
It's every email that comes in with, hey, here's your, because I've got 3 different agents with auto searches set up.
Oh,
That
okay.
is a lottery scratch ticket.
Oh, yeah.
I get to open the email and go, hey, is this the next cash flow that's going to make my life better?
Okay.
It's probably not that much. It's a couple of hours at least.
Really?
Because I
Okay.
flip through emails, compare notes. But a lot of that too is I'm comparing notes for people who've reached out and said, hey, run through this deal with me to help me learn. It's not always just for me, but yeah.
I was going to say. Okay. All right. And then Matt, what about, I think you have multiple buy boxes as well. What's going on today?
So I've got 7 buy boxes.
7.
7. I didn't start with 7. I started
that's
with 1.
important.
Yes. I have 7 now.
Okay.
So my rule is a half an hour travel distance. I don't want to ever go more than a half an hour.
Okay.
And everything of mine is in 3 towns.
Okay.
Everything. I'll only do 3 towns. The only time that I'll deviate from that is if I haven't done enough work that day, I'll go check out the few waterfront towns. But that stuff is so crazy. Like we're technically, the city that I live in is technically on the water, but anything there is like over $1 million type of thing. And so it's like, that's not my thing. It's not what I do. So yeah, so 7 buy boxes basically is broken down by single family in each of those 3 towns.
Sure.
And then 2 through 4 in each of those 3 towns.
Okay.
And then
6.
I have, and then I have 1 commercial set up for all 3 of those towns.
Makes perfect sense. So those are, again, just alerts or queries or whatever you want to call them. Those are saved searches.
Yep. Agent set up searches. So I get my emails, I get the Zillow alerts, I get kind of everything flooding.
Yeah.
And, depending on what time my son woke me up, they're there for me or not. But yeah, just go right. And I literally just go right through them, check them out. And obviously the big thing is, network wise, I have a number of people, probably, I don't know, 20 agents and brokers and, investors and other things like that know what I look for. Yeah. And so just the natural flow of things.
And then how much time are you spending a day, you think, looking at your buy box?
6 hours. No, I'm teasing. You
guys are competing.
No, my time, mine's probably 15 to 20 minutes, but kind of for me, it's, what I'm evaluating and when I'm looking at it is I'm not actually even looking on the cash return on it. Because I know exactly where I want to own, what I want to own it for, what the bedroom count is, all that other stuff. And because I've got 70-ish, units, I know exactly what I can get for rent on these things. Yeah. Because I'm going in and I'm willing to do 20, 30,000 bucks worth of work to get me to the rent number that I need to. Yep. I just don't know if it's there yet. So for me, it's much more, I'll probably look at more stuff. Because I'll buy something that's in a location that's a C quality. Yes. And I'll bring it to an A because of the location. And then the rents, I just bought a place where the rents were $740 a month for a 2-bedroom. So that got that tenant out and I spent $6,000 in the place and now the rent's $1,300.
That's a pretty good return.
Yeah. It's not about, nothing like that 8-month ROI on a project, right, Mike? It's ridiculous. So yeah, so that's the 7, that's the buy box. And that's what I'm kind of always monitoring. Like I said, 15, 20 minutes a day, unless one of them hits the box and then it's deep dive into that deal. And I'm 10, 15, 20 minutes into that deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So my buy box is, I actually have never counted, but it's pretty, how do I want to phrase this? I basically have 3 buy boxes because now I can look at the entire Fresno market rather quickly. So basically for me, it's categories, right? Single family is one set of criteria. My criteria for me is I don't look at anything over the median. It doesn't even hit my radar, right? And my median's 350. I don't think I've even adjusted it. I think my first housing bar is below 300. Yep. Right. So again,
that's exactly mine.
Right. So I look at that. That's one criteria. There are obviously some zip codes that if it comes in, it has to be pretty cheap for me to go deeper. But again, that's the beauty of doing this for 20 years. So I can just look at houses under 300 grand because I know those can make decent rentals in my market. I'd like them to be under 250, but my bar is 300 because you just never know where you can create more value. Then I do small multifamily, 2s through 4s. Those have been very highly competitive the last year or so, but that's its own criteria. Sometimes you can find stuff misallocated, which is, is good. Cause again, I've been doing this a while. And then for me, I'm really starting to baseline 5s to 20s, 5 to 40s, I think 40 units and below.
Okay.
I believe that that's a market that will blow up, meaning have stress, because deals are still trading at numbers that I wouldn't even think about paying. And I'm guessing, like Jonathan and I talk about, the financing is very inauspicious in a couple of years. So I'm doing my homework there now to be ready for 2.5 years from now. So occasionally I'll look at condos, but they don't generally make sense in my market. I'll generally look at, lakefront stuff just for fun. But yeah, I don't think I've spent more than 20 minutes in my buy box, all 3 of those buy boxes in months. If a deal comes up, yeah, I mean, I go deep, but that's kind of the next step for me.
20 total, right, Mike? 20
Yeah,
total
20
between
total.
the 3. Total.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Oh yeah. I mean, literally, I think I'm in there.
You're eyeballing.
I'm like, oh, interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just,
Yep.
Exactly. Everybody gets there. It just takes time. So Dion, let's talk about how it started, or where you think it's going to go. I forgot what was next.
How it started.
Yeah. Thank you.
I owned a single family house, had moved into an apartment to rent out the house to get rental income and to see if I can handle being a landlord and single parent and working full time. So my brain said, do that again.
Oh, okay.
Buy another single family house, live in it for a year, move to the next one, rent that one out, and rinse and repeat. In my area, single family houses don't come close to cash flowing. Yeah. $400,000 house will rent for $1,500.
Not going to cash flow.
You're below your mortgage, let alone setting aside for CapEx vacancy. Rents will start to go up, but prices are continuing to go up. And so I shifted to small multifamily because of a blog I read on Bigger Pockets that talked about the lending being the same for 4 units or less. And I had literally lived 40 years of my life never knowing that. Didn't know that was a thing. And so it went from single family house with this much knowledge, but just saying, I want to buy a place that will make money. That was the buy box. Nothing beyond that.
Okay. Very cool. And Matt, I'm guessing it didn't start with 7. That's an overachiever right there. What did it start?
It started with 17 and I had to work it down.
You just whittled it down.
Yeah. So it did start, it really, for me, it started for one, because, in doing the homework and in, just like Dion, median house price, $250,000 to $300,000, but high taxes in the state of New Hampshire because it's property tax. We have no sales tax, no income tax. So everything is taxed really based on the property. And so almost none of that stuff cash flowed. Like, they're garbage deals, $100, $200. The only way you're making any real money is longevity and how long you've owned it. That's the only way you're making money on singles. So everything for me really started out duplex because I was like, I want to move in there myself. And duplex, to Dion's point, followed exactly what a single family home was, because I got scared from the triples that I had done in a city where they required certificates of compliance and certificates of occupancy. Duplex don't require that. And so in that city, they actually have 37 building inspectors that basically on every 24-month basis show up and tell you to fix $5,000 to $7,000 worth of stuff every 2 years, even if your place is well maintained. They're like, well, you see that little thing up there? Yeah, I see it. No one else has seen it, but you want me to fix that for $5,000? And so it was always things like that. And that just ate away at me every year, because that was eating it. That $5,000 to $7,000, that was 60% of my profit.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were spending my profit. And so I was just like, yeah, we're not going to do that. So I did the research and said, duplexes don't have those same COCs. You can actually do all that work and stay away from all that nasty, paperwork. And so that's why the buy box basically became duplexes.
That's awesome. Yeah. For me, again, it was a market I knew nothing about. So for me, I had to get super micro. And again, I could have been in Australia or Brazil or Europe. So for me, it was one zip code, one housing type, one size. And again, it's embarrassing. Right now I can look at the entire Fresno market in 20, 25 minutes. Back then I was looking at 31 homes in the same time frame. You just rent, it gets better and better, and you're building it and you learn. So as I started, I think the number one step for any new investor, whether you take the course or not, is get focused and create a buy box. Would you guys agree? How about you, Dion?
So I agree with that. Narrow down your search as much as you can for yourself. And one thing I would like to do, and I probably, if you don't mind, I think I would like to make a video to put in the course on this.
Sure.
And you can correct me if you disagree. But when you're doing an auto search as an investor, once you have your criteria figured out for your own buy box, even if I was a real estate agent that had 100% full access to the MLS in the areas that I was searching, I would still have 3 agents with auto searches set up, because I have an email where I copy and paste my exact criteria and the footprint of where I want to look, and I send it to these agents. And I've worked with several over the years. I have 3 that I work with primarily. One time in 10 years have they ever sent me the same deal within a 2-day period.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So there's something nuanced to the way people search on the MLS that even if I was an agent, which I'm not, I would want other agents searching for me, and then have honor. Whichever agent sends you the one you end up going for, they make the offer, they get the commission.
Agreed.
And so when I suggest this, a lot of people who, when they're just starting out, think, well, my agent says I have to sign an exclusivity clause because I'm going to work with them. And a home buyer who's going to take an agent to several houses and do several tours, absolutely, you're taking that person's time, make sure they get the commission.
Agreed.
But an investor, it's fire and forget. I go, here's my criteria, set up auto searches. You might talk to me in 3 months when I say make an offer.
Right.
For that, there is no exclusivity, and I want multiple searches going on.
I agree.
So if you don't mind, I'd like to put a really detailed version of that together for the course.
Go. You guys can add anything you'd like. Go for it. Go for it. So Matt, what do you think of a buy box? Do you think that's a step 1 for lots of newbie investors?
Got to start there. Really, that's because you've got that just as a baseline. You have to have that to really understand, learn the market, do the research, understand what's out there, understand how it cash flows, create the baseline, not only of this is what I can buy, but this is what a typical deal is returning in those areas. You know, those are all the things that are of critical importance. I mean, and I always tell agents too, you know, because everybody gets nervous in bringing a deal to an investor because they say, oh, well, is he just going to then hand that to the guys he's most familiar with? And I always tell them, I say, listen, I'm a gentleman. I dance with the one who brung me. Absolutely. So if you bring me a deal, we are locked in. It's you and me, and I will sign an exclusivity. So what I do to put them at ease and also put their bosses at ease usually is I'll sign an exclusive on that property.
Yeah, that MLS number or
that MLS number only for them for that. That way, if it expires, gets pulled off the market and comes back on in a year, tough, it's a new MLS number. Right. You know, however, I'm still going to do some due diligence. I'm like, you know what? I looked at that with, you know, Darlene or with Jay, and I'm going to go look at that again. And I just need to call them up. So
yeah, the one thing I want to make people realize in your example, and really Dion's as well, is you don't start with 7 buy boxes.
No.
I want to be very clear. If you started with 7, you're going to fail because you'll get you won't get any economies of scale. You won't build that foundational knowledge. You'll just be totally confused and go nowhere. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially in your footprint. You narrowed it down to a zip code. And I think at some point you said even that was a bit much, and you narrowed it down to a part of a zip code, right?
Yeah, I went zip code, then a type of asset. So not units, just houses. And that was too much. I had to go to a size and footprint to get to an acceptable number to look at. I got really, for 3 years, that's all I looked at.
Because one of the things you talk about every day when you say do the work, it's to learn what is an average, good, or great deal in your area.
That is the only question that matters.
On multiple.
It's the only question. You have to know it. Once you know average, folks, the game is simple. But you got to do the work to know average. I mean, that is the only question that matters, is what's an average deal. Sorry to cut you off, Dion, but I'm very passionate about that one.
No, you're very fine. It's why I cut back. I knew we would just be talking over each other because we both want to get that out there.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So I appreciate this. Let's wrap it up. Matt, how can people find you?
Lumberjacklandlord.com, Lumberjack Landlord on YouTube, with you guys on Thursdays, and part of your wonderful and amazing course that's creating financial freedom.
There you go. And Dion, how about you?
Right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom. Pretty active in the Bigger Pockets forums. So if you're on Facebook, reach out to me there. I try to answer every question that comes my way.
And you have a super secret one-time only notice coming up. You're going to be a coach or a mentor or something in some Bigger Pockets event, which we will talk about shortly.
We'll keep it short like that.
There you go. Thanks, guys.